Hello, nice to be here. Thank you for coming. Thank you for having me here. It's a huge privilege to be here. And I work with future studies, and I've been doing that for the last 15 years. And I think I'm very much connected to this picture. I think I always start with this picture, and because all of you in this room and me have some kind of connection to this one, and it's one of the starting points for my work, and probably is your work also, because it's creative work, as future studies is, because I'm studying something that haven't happened yet, so it's some kind of creative work, you could say. It's probably about this picture. This is what we all are looking for. Why are people doing things like this, and how can we create it again? Basically, all of us in this room get our salary from that one, trying to understand why people are behaving and do something creative about it. And as I said, for the last 15 years, I've been doing future studies. But before that, I worked with product development and things like that. But time, as we're going to talk about today, has always been a big part of this. And time is something I dig into maybe 10 years ago and try to figure out something about. And it went, like this. But today I'm going to talk about, because what I noticed was that when I worked with clients and in projects, the definition of time is a problem. Understanding time, what is time, how much time, what is now, what is then, what is later. And when you getting into projects and trying to define your context, time was a big hurdle to get through. So I did what researchers do in life. You got a subject and you dig into it. So I started reading, science, the science behind time, like Newton, absolute time and absolute space. If you knew, that is pretty simple to understand. There is time and there is space. And from there on, I went into Einstein, the relative, time, space, and speed. It becomes a little bit more complicated there, So you could have different point of view in time in regards to how fast you are traveling. Okay, from there on you can go into philosophy. And philosophy is, that is about time, you understand if you read about it. It's like 20,000 different ideas about times. Everything that's very simple notion of time to the very subjective idea that time is something that has happened already and we're just looking at it. And then I went to cosmology and psychology, and I read books from artists and everything. And I put everything on walls in a big room. So 10 years ago, I built a time room at my office, where I put everything I found about time, I put on the walls like this, And I sat in there with my partners, and I was figuring out time, how can we utilize this? And I became more and more in chaotic situation, because I didn't realize this was too much. I couldn't see through it. But on the other hand, I really needed some kind of framework when working with time. So over the years, I have ended up with 5 frameworks in regards to time that I utilize today, every week. This is my 5 points of time. When I go into a new project, when I go into a new client, and I would like to share them with you today. These are my 5 points of time and how I work with time. They may not be right. I don't say that. This is my idea of time. So yeah, just take it from there. Is okay? Thanks. This is the first bit. It will not be more creative than this. This is just arrows and dots and things like this. But it's the basic idea about this. This is the first perspective of time I always take with me into a project or into a client meeting. Are we talking about something that is known, or are we talking about something that is unknown? And it seems very simple, but I've seen very often this is a huge problem with organization and projects. Because there is a connection with time here. Because if we are going to do creative work in connection to the unknown, we very often have a very long time frame connected to that one. But are we going to do creative work in connection to something that we already know? The time frames are very short sometimes. And if you then put an organization upon that, you will have space of decision, as I said, on long term up here. And they basically are about the unknown. on the other hand, if you are working with the known, you have a shorter time frame and a lot of people. To get some kind of context for the project or the client, what are we talking about? Because if they come to me and say, we need to make some kind of future studies or business intelligence work, there is a huge difference between doing research where the world is going up here or down here. There are two different perspectives of how to look upon the world. So just this basic knowledge and thinking about, are we talking about the known or unknown? You could also say that if you are working within an organization and many of you are working here, what I call middle management hell. Once a week you have some decisions making going on in regards to where should we be in the future with the company, and next meeting is about, how should a coffee machine be, So you go up and down between the known and the unknown, and, that creates hell for a lot of managers and sick leave and etc. That is, I've been there. My God, I will never go there again. So that is the first theme of time for me. From there on, the definition of time is very problematic in some ways, because you can have a religious idea about time, a philosophical way of thinking about time. But to get it's pretty simple. It's past, present, and then future, just to get some kind of basic framework. And over the years, I've learned that most of the people in the world could connect to the idea that there is some kind of past, present, and future. And from there on, to get some kind of context, and the most part of our projects in this room is connected to the present and the future. Not a lot of us are doing work in regards to the past. So when it comes to the future, this is also a part of time concept that needs some kind of framework. And over the years, I worked always with these words to try to define the future perspective in a project. We basically always start about trying to figure out what do we know about the future. Something very facts and figure-based idea of the future. A lot of the times it's demographics. Demographics is, oh my God, the holy grail of future studies, I would like to say. Because sometimes in life you need to put numbers on something that haven't happened yet, which is, pretty interesting, just that. But demographics we know pretty much about. I know exactly how many children in Sweden that are going to start school in 7 years. So you could put numbers on a future perspective that haven't happened yet. And in some way, a lot of clients that I have really like that. They really like to have numbers on something that haven't happened yet. So demographic is a very good, source of information to get numbers into that. So that we know what to know. The second perspective of future planning is to try to figure out what do people want and will. And because it's interesting with this perspective of time is that you have some kind of own will to determine how it will happen. If you're with me there. As a person, you have your own will, but as a company, you have your vision and strategy and goals and missions and targets, etc. That's all this kind of definition of where we want to go. And the third perspective is, of course, what do we believe will happen? And here you can put in everything you think about. You could believe that, we will have white clothes. And you can call in futurist thinkers. You could call me, and I can go there and talk about where the future is going. If you think about it, it's interesting with future thinkers. For the last 100 years, all futurists have said that we're going to have white clothes in the future. If you read futurist books for the last 100 years, they all have a line in, we will probably have white clothes in the future. And nobody has white clothes. Nobody. So you could, But if you put all these three perspectives together and you write a report or you think about these three things, you have a pretty good view of where the world is going in that project and that process. And then you could combine that with another theory. And this is the theory that only three things will occur in the future. Everything you can come up with will probably be within one of these three perspectives of the future. And it's very simple. It's 3 lines here. Just a description of them briefly is, the first perspective is that you have something that happens in the past, and it's still happening at the present, And then you can have some kind of discussion in the project, or if this going to continue, or will it decline? That probably is a lot of the creative work that you are doing is connected to that kind of question some way, like reading newspapers on paper. We have done it in the past, we're doing it at the present. Will it continue, will it decline? There is some kind of notion there. The second level is, of course, it happened in the past, it's not happening today, but it could come back, some kind of cyclic movement in some way. Hooch. Hooch. Yeah, some of you recognize that one. Yeah, the summer of 1997, 225 million liters in Sweden of alcohol beverage, and never more again. Could come back, I don't know, but some kind of cyclic behavior or something like that. And the third perspective is, it has never happened before, it doesn't happen today, and then it suddenly just happened. The big innovation, the big idea, the big invention. The area where we all are looking, and the area where we're all reading books about innovation. I think there are about 100 new titles on Amazon every month just about innovation. Everything you could come up with in connection to time and the future is probably in some of these 3 boxes. Yeah? Excuse me. Yeah. No. There are books like that. You could argue that there maybe are down here, something that haven't happened before. You could have this kind of discussion. And the interesting thing about these two kind of, you could have a workshop in the beginning of the project, like I have, in regards to this. Just discuss it. Get the context right. Where are we talking about time? Is it in black swans or blue oceans or whatever you have read the last weeks? But there is some kind of framework in regards to this. And it's been very helpful for me, And I hope it will be for you. Continuous cyclist, some kind of innovational way of working. The interesting thing is when you go to either in your own company or if you work with a client, if you look about business development in our part of the world, it's very much connected to this. Trying to figure out a new one. And in the creative business, oh my God, we are very much, hooked on this idea. To find something that has never happened before, to be the first one to do that. But most of the money in the world are produced up here. Trying to figure out and to be really good at, figure out how to decline or stop doing things. And one of the problems in the Nordic region is that we are very bad at stop doing things. We are the adding culture, so to speak. We add new things. We really like that, We don't stop doing things, but we add new things. And that. You can take that with you at home. And then you can look upon your business development in your organization and look how many resources are we dividing on these 3 phases. When I worked as a business development manager in a huge company, I think we spent about approximately 80% of our resources down here in business development. And the return of investment was, not so high. This is the second perspective of time. The third framework idea that we always talk about when we start things is this. The difference between time and timing. And this is my words at the end of January 2016 that I used to define for myself the difference. That's not important. The important is that you talk about this and define your own differences in products. Are we talking about time or timing? Because over the years, those have gone in together and become something like I cannot see the trees for this. And then in my way, time is something very slow and sluggish. It's a basic knowledge of that we are living in some kind of huge time frame with values that are pretty solid, we are living there, with target groups and individuals that share those things, and it's not moving very fast. But timing is very fast and very flexible, and it's connected to the society and what is right at the moment, and it's very much tempo and much behavior, something that we more, shifts a little bit faster. And a lot of time projects that I'm into and all of your products, if you work with creative work, is either connected to one of these or both. And are we doing creative work for the moment, or are we doing creative work for the part of bigger things? And to have some kind of clear idea about this difference between time and timing have been Extremely important, I would say, over the last years. So don't read these words, those are just mine, but just to have them in context have been very important. Recognize this one? The problem with timing. The fourth perspective about time that we work with is, when I was in that room with all the pictures of Newton and Einstein and philosophers and everything, and my world was in chaos and I didn't see anything, I didn't see any connections in this, was that think about it like this. After so many thousands of years that we have thought about time, and in 2016, there isn't one book about time that is the right one. There isn't one solid idea that this is the knowledge of time. You should look upon it like this. There isn't one theory that is exactly one that all over the world is, There are thousands of ideas about time. And the lessons and learning from that must be, you have to look upon time all the time. Because if there isn't the one clear view about the perspective in the world, you have to check it all the time. You have to be on top of that. Because it's constantly changing and evolving. Time, to be able to work with time in my life and future and history and past and present and high and low, this is a subject you have to read a lot of things about and listen to a lot of people about. And I would say for creative work, this is the fundamental. This is planning A. This is the core of planning, to be able to have some kind of idea about time and where we are, to be able to create solutions, to be on top of this. That is one of the lessons that I know. So what I do when I work with top management a lot of times is that I fill their life with ideas about time and books to read, etc., to help them get on top of this problem. Because if you're an organization with 10,000 of people, you will have 10,000 different views about time. That's life. The fifth perspective about time is this one. And this is the last one. And this could be partly my own problem. And I have created this, problem maybe over the last years, because I'm very much focused on the future. And what I've noticed is that it's much easier to talk about the past or the future than the present. And it's a lot easier for people to work with creativity and ideas that is not connected to right now. It's a lot easier to have a creative meeting and talk about what will happen or what had happened, but not right now. And I'm a huge fan of this. I'm a part of going around the world and talking about the future, and everyone will be in white clothes and and everything like this. And we have institutes like this. We have the Institute for the Future in Sweden, one of the largest institutes for the future in the world, Drottninggatan. Good ones. And the historians in the world, they're very powerful, the historians. You call them in and they say how it is, it has deconnected us from being able to do something right now. We have become increasingly more interested in things that happened in the past and in the future than the present. In top management, and I would say in the creative business. To be able to merge all these things together, to be able to do something concrete right now, in the moment, that is connected to where we are at the moment, to solve the problem at the end of January 2016. This has become a big hurdle. And I think it's the Einstein problem here. Because I think some of us think that we are moving a little bit faster than others. That we are maybe a little bit, I wouldn't say better, but I would say maybe a little bit faster. We are traveling through space a little bit faster. We are maybe seeing things a little bit earlier than the rest of the public. And then we translate that into to be a little bit too smart. And things like this. Nowadays, one of the biggest works with my projects today, when I work with time and future studies, is to be able to focus these thoughts into now. And I would strongly recommend to develop some kind of knowledge around this. What I do today when we work with this is that we have workshops and thought ideas that we try to merge these perspectives together and try to make them real in real life. And I call it the problem of now. So these were the 5 perspectives. It was about the known and the unknown. It was about what do you know, what's your wants, and what do you believe, and then of course about the three things that will happen in the future, the continuous way, the cyclic way, or the innovation way. And it was about, you know, being in constant connected to time. And it's about this, merge everything together to be able to create something now. Because those days in my life that this happens, everything aligns, all these five things align in some way. It had happened 4 or 5 or 6 times in my working life for the last 25 years. The creation has been extremely good. It has had a solid foundation. And with these 5 thoughts, we have been able to just put the structure there and to be able to create 100% freely. Because we have some kind of foundation regardless of that. 3 or 4 times in my working life this has happened. I hope it will happen 3 or 4 times more in my working life. But, but that is the knowledge. And in those cases, this will have happened again. And this is my point of view and my remarks on time for Creative Morning in Stockholm at the end of January 2016. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you.